He went on a secret trip. He didn't expect me to be gone when he returned. I found the boarding pass in his jacket pocket while looking for his phone charger. Madrid. 3 days ago. The same 3 days he'd told me he was stuck in Denver for work meetings. My hand shook as I took a photo of it. We'd been married for 11 years, and he'd never lied about travel before. At least, I never caught him. I sat on our bedroom floor, that little piece of paper feeling heavier than it should. The flight was first class too, which made no sense since his company always booked economy. I heard his car pull into the driveway and quickly stuffed the boarding pass back where I found it. That night at dinner, I watched him carefully. He looked normal, eating his pasta and talking about the supposed Denver trip like it was real. He even showed me photos of the hotel lobby and complained about the conference room being too cold. I nodded along, feeling sick to my stomach. Every detail was so casual, so practiced. How long had he been doing this? After 12 years together, I thought I knew every expression on his face, every tone in his voice. Now I wondered if I'd ever really known him at all. I excused myself early and pretended to have a headache, locking myself in the bathroom. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about Madrid, about who he might have been with, what he was hiding. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him yet. I needed proof, needed to understand what was happening before I destroyed everything we'd built. So I started watching him differently. I noticed how he angled his phone away from me now. How he'd started going to the gym twice as often. How he bought new cologne last month. All these tiny things I'd brushed off before suddenly formed a picture I couldn't ignore. Something was very wrong. The next Monday, he announced another work trip. Atlanta this time, he said. 4 days. He kissed my forehead that morning like always, grabbed his suitcase, and left. I waited exactly 1 hour before calling his office. My heart pounded as I asked for him, using the excuse that I needed to discuss our insurance. The receptionist paused, then gently told me he'd taken the whole week off. Personal time. I thanked her and hung up, feeling dizzy. So it wasn't just Madrid. This was a pattern. I opened my laptop and started searching for private investigators, then stopped myself. I had a better idea. I packed a small bag and drove to my sister's house across town. Olivia took one look at my face and pulled me inside. I told her everything while she made coffee, her expression getting darker with each detail. She didn't tell me I was overreacting or that there must be an explanation. She just listened, and when I finished, she said something that changed everything. She reminded me that our mom had left her entire estate to both of us, including the cabin upstate. The one nobody had used in years. The one with no mortgage, no bills in my name, completely separate from my life with him. The plan formed quickly after that. If he could have secret trips, I could have a secret life. I wasn't going to wait around to be the crying wife when the truth finally came out. I spent the next 2 days moving things quietly. Clothes, important documents, jewelry, photo albums. Everything that mattered to me went into storage or to the cabin. I emptied half our savings account, exactly my legal share. I changed my direct deposit at work to a new bank account he didn't know about. By Wednesday, I was ready. He thought I'd be home when he returned Sunday. He was so wrong. Thursday morning, I called my boss. I'd been with the company for 8 years, and they liked me. I explained I needed to relocate for family reasons and asked about remote work. They agreed immediately. My job was mostly computer work anyway. Then I went to our house one last time. I walked through each room, remembering the life we'd had here. The kitchen where we'd cooked together. The living room where we'd watched movies. The bedroom where I'd thought we were happy. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter with a simple note. Gone to find myself. Don't look for me. Then I drove away. The cabin was exactly as I remembered. Dusty, quiet, surrounded by trees and nothing else. No neighbors for miles. Perfect. I spent the first day cleaning, making it livable again. The water and electricity still worked, thank goodness. My sister had helped me stock the pantry before I arrived. By evening, I sat on the porch with tea and finally let myself feel everything. Anger, hurt, betrayal, but also something unexpected. Relief. Freedom. For the first time in months, I wasn't pretending. Wasn't watching my words or second-guessing myself. I was just me, alone, figuring out what came next. It felt terrifying and amazing at once. He started calling Sunday night. I'd blocked his number, but he tried from other phones. Work phones, his brother's phone, even unknown numbers. I let them all go to voicemail but never listened to the messages. On Monday, he somehow found Olivia and showed up at her door. She texted me immediately with updates. He was confused, she said. Angry. Demanding to know where I was. She told him I was safe and that was all he needed to know. He threatened to call the police, but she reminded him I was an adult who'd left voluntarily with a note. There was nothing they could do. Tuesday morning, I started my new routine. Coffee on the porch at sunrise. Remote work from the cabin's small office. Lunch walks in the forest. It was simple, quiet, nothing like my old life. In the afternoons, I'd tackle small projects around the cabin. Fixing the loose step, painting the shutters, clearing the overgrown garden. Physical work that made me tired in a good way. My mind felt clearer than it had in years. I wasn't checking my phone every 5 minutes or worrying about what he was doing. I was just existing, one moment at a time. And slowly, I started feeling like myself again. By the second week, something strange happened. His mother called my sister's phone. I almost didn't take it, but curiosity won. She was crying, begging me to come home, saying he was devastated. That he'd explained everything. The Madrid trip was for my birthday surprise, she said. He'd been planning to take me there for our anniversary. The Atlanta trip was visiting his sick college friend he didn't want to burden me with. Every lie had an explanation now, carefully crafted. I listened quietly, then asked her one question. Why did he tell his office he was taking personal time if these were work trips? Silence. Then she hung up. That call bothered me more than I wanted to admit. What if I was wrong? What if there were real explanations and I'd destroyed everything over suspicion? I spent that night going through everything again in my mind. The boarding pass, the lies, the changed behavior, the secret phone angles. But also 11 years of what I'd thought was a good marriage. The way he'd held me after my dad died. How he'd supported my career change 3 years ago. Were those moments lies too? Or was I throwing away something real because of fear? I didn't sleep at all, just watched the sunrise through the cabin windows, more confused than ever. Wednesday brought clarity in an unexpected way. Olivia called with news. She'd run into his coworker at the grocery store, someone I'd met at company parties. The woman had asked about me, seemed genuinely concerned. Then she'd mentioned, casually, that everyone at the office was surprised when he'd requested so much time off lately. 6 trips in 4 months. All personal time. My breath caught. 6 trips. I'd only known about 2. That meant 4 other times he'd lied, for other secrets I hadn't even discovered. The doubt from the previous night evaporated. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a pattern. A choice. And I'd made the right decision leaving. I threw myself into transforming the cabin after that. If this was going to be my home now, it needed to feel like mine. I ordered furniture online, painted walls in colors I loved, hung curtains I'd picked out. My old house had been decorated by both of us, compromise after compromise until nothing felt fully mine. Here, every choice was just mine. I painted the bedroom a deep blue he would have hated. I bought a bright yellow couch that made me smile. I hung photos of places I wanted to visit. The cabin slowly became a reflection of who I was, not who we'd been together. It felt like finding pieces of myself I'd lost. A month in, I realized I hadn't thought about him all day. I'd worked, gone for a long hike, made dinner, read a book, and not once did my mind drift to what he was doing or feeling. That night, I finally listened to one of his voicemails. Big mistake. His voice was rough, desperate. He said he loved me, that he didn't understand why I'd left, that we could work through whatever was wrong. He said he'd been faithful, devoted, confused by my sudden departure. The performance was almost convincing. Almost. But I knew about the 6 trips now. I deleted all the voicemails without listening to the rest. Spring arrived slowly at the cabin. Ice melted, revealing the creek I'd forgotten ran through the property. Birds returned, filling the mornings with sound. I started taking my coffee down by the water, watching it flow, constant and unbothered. My sister visited more often now, bringing supplies and company. She'd stopped asking if I wanted to talk about him, stopped suggesting counseling or reconciliation. Instead, she helped me plant a garden. We spent weekends turning soil, planting seeds, talking about everything except my marriage. It was exactly what I needed. The garden became my therapy, something living that needed care and gave back beauty. Simple. Honest. Real. 2 months after I left, the divorce papers arrived at Olivia's house. He'd finally accepted I wasn't coming back. My hand shook as I read through them. He was asking for half of everything, including the cabin. The cabin that had been my mother's, that had nothing to do with him. I called a lawyer immediately. She assured me the cabin was protected, inheritance wasn't marital property. But the rest would be complicated. Our house, our savings, everything we'd built together would be divided down the middle. I'd expected this, prepared for it even, but seeing it in legal language made it real. 11 years reduced to asset division. It felt cold and necessary. The lawyer also suggested I might want to hire that investigator now, for the divorce proceedings. If he'd been unfaithful, it could affect the settlement in my favor. Part of me wanted to know, wanted proof that I'd been right to leave. But a bigger part just wanted it over. I didn't need evidence of his betrayal to know it was real. I'd felt it in my gut that day I found the boarding pass, and everything since had confirmed it. So I told her no. I'd take my half and move on. Knowing exactly what he'd done wouldn't change anything now. It would just hurt more, and I was tired of hurting. That decision freed something in me. I'd been holding on to anger like a shield, using it to justify my choices and protect myself from doubt. But anger was exhausting. It colored everything, kept me tied to him and what he'd done. So I started letting it go, bit by bit. Not forgiveness exactly, but release. When thoughts of him came, I acknowledged them and let them pass like clouds. I focused instead on what I was building, this new life in the woods. My garden was growing. My work was thriving. I'd started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. Every day, I felt a little lighter, a little more whole. 3 months in, I met someone. Nothing romantic, just a friendship that reminded me what genuine connection felt like. His name was Thomas, and he owned the small general store in town. I'd been shopping there weekly, and we'd started chatting about nothing much. Books we'd read, weather, local wildlife. Simple conversations that made me laugh. One day, he mentioned the community garden behind the store needed volunteers. I went the next Saturday and found myself part of something again. A group of people working together, sharing stories and seeds. Nobody asked about my past or why I lived alone in the woods. They just accepted me as I was. It felt like belonging without conditions. 4 months after leaving, I drove past our old house. I don't know why, maybe closure or curiosity. It looked different somehow, smaller than I remembered. There was a for sale sign in the yard. So he was moving on too, leaving behind what we'd been. I felt surprisingly little seeing it. No grief or regret, just a quiet acknowledgement that this chapter was truly ending. I thought about the woman I'd been when I lived there, always slightly uncomfortable in her own life, always adjusting herself to fit. I didn't miss her. I liked who I was becoming better. Someone stronger, more honest with herself. Someone who didn't accept crumbs and call it love. The divorce finalized in May, 5 months after I'd left. It was surprisingly simple in the end. We split everything 50-50, the house sale covering most of it. I kept the cabin, he kept his retirement account. Clean break. The lawyer called to tell me it was done, and I stood on my porch feeling nothing but relief. I was free now, legally and emotionally. That night, Olivia came over with wine and we celebrated quietly. Not the end of my marriage, but the beginning of whatever came next. She asked what I'd do now, and I realized I didn't know. For the first time in years, my future was completely open. Terrifying. Exciting. Mine. Summer at the cabin was beautiful. My garden exploded with vegetables and flowers. I canned tomatoes, made jam, learned to preserve what I grew. The work was satisfying in ways my old office job never was. I could see the results of my effort in jars lining my shelves, in the meals I cooked from food I'd grown. Thomas from the store started joining me for weekend hikes. We were just friends, but his company was easy and comfortable. He never pushed for more, seemed content with what we had. It reminded me that relationships could be simple, without games or secrets. That people could just enjoy each other without complications. Maybe someday I'd want more, but right now, this was enough. 6 months in, I finally told my story. Not to everyone, just to a few trusted people at the community garden. We were working side by side one Saturday, and someone asked about my marriage. Instead of deflecting, I told them the truth. The boarding pass, the lies, the decision to leave, the divorce. They listened without judgment, and when I finished, one woman shared her own story of leaving. Then another. It turned out I wasn't alone in starting over, in choosing myself over a broken relationship. Their stories gave me strength, reminded me that what I'd done took courage. That walking away from what wasn't working was valid, even without perfect proof or dramatic confrontation. Now, 7 months later, I'm sitting on this porch watching fall arrive. The leaves are starting to turn, and there's a chill in the morning air. I think about the woman who found that boarding pass and how scared she was. How she thought her world was ending. In some ways it did end. The marriage, the house, the life she knew. But something better began. I'm not the same person anymore. I'm someone who trusts her instincts, who doesn't ignore red flags, who knows she deserves honesty and respect. Do I know for certain what he was hiding? No. But I know leaving was right because look where I am now. Happy. Free. Whole. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away before you have all the answers. Sometimes trusting yourself is enough. And for me, it was more than enough. It was everything.